Hey everyone, having just taken a few moments to worship in this space, we now want to take a few moments to have a key conversation in this space. A critical conversation, a spiritual one, even a relational one. And I am super pumped to have two personal friends of mine with me to help me do that today. I want to introduce to you Dr. Toyosi Olatade and Chief Paul Sikorsky. Gentlemen, thank you so much for making time to be here.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, I know you guys are very busy individuals as you serve and lead within our cities, and I'm grateful for the time. Paul, you are the Chief of Police in the largest law enforcement agency in the Quad Cities. You've been part of the Davenport Police Department for more than 30 years. You've been the chief since 2016. You are a personal friend of mine, and you're also a person of faith. And I'm thrilled that you've taken time to have this conversation together.
I appreciate you being in my life and God being in my life and having this opportunity today to talk about what's going on in our communities and in our nation.
Yeah, it's for such a time as this, kind of dynamic.
It is.
And Timmy, you are also a chief, but you're the Chief Medical Officer of Unity Point Health Trinity. And you're a member of the Heritage family. You serve on our local church board. And I am grateful for your community influence and your friendship as well in the season.
Thank you. It's been, I always enjoy every bit of my time at Heritage. So I always say that one of the reasons I'm in the Quad Cities is Heritage. So
very good.
Yeah.
Well, we love that you're here and not only serving the cities, but serving alongside the church family as well. And I know in this particular season, both of you have been leading in some pretty significant complexities, stresses, even some unrest within our city dynamics. And as a pastor and as a former law enforcement officer, even as a fellow community builder, I'm grateful for what you do as you serve. But I've also had a burden for you guys. You are my friends, and we have sat in different spaces at different times, and we've talked about life, and we've talked about our communities, we've talked about things of faith, and this is one of those spaces for us to even create space to do that today, to just have some conversation. And the reality is that this conversation is not intended to be end-all, be-all. It's not intended to cover every issue. It's just intended to create space to listen, even space to understand, to seek understanding, and to be better and do better as we connect and build bridges. And I'd love to start this time, because you are my friends, I'd love to know how you're doing personally. In fact, if you were to pick one word that describes how you're doing in this season, what would it be and why is that?
Well, right now, optimistic. If you would have asked me that a week ago, probably much different answers. You know, there was times of anger, frustration, just being sick to my stomach of things that I've witnessed, you know, that all of us witnessed on video of things that happened in Minneapolis. But right now, several days later, I would give you my word as optimism.
That's powerful as someone who's been in some of the greatest complexities of this season, especially in our cities.
And I think, you know, I think that it's developed into that because of conversations, because of leadership, because of just witnessing community members, witnessing officers, and just knowing and getting a lot of encouraging messages as well. From people in the community, and knowing and really truly believing that we are going to be able to use this tragedy and the energy behind it to create good in our community.
Yeah, thank you. Timmy.
Yeah, my word will be grateful, and I say grateful primarily because of a couple of things. From one angle, I know that we have, we serve a God that is in control, that there's nothing that has happened or is going on that he's not aware of. And in that light, he says that in this world you have a lot of troubles, but it gives us the assurance that he has overcome. So there, even though I do not know exactly how we'll get out of what we're in, I don't have the prescription to write, I know that we will overcome because God has overcome. So that is from my belief or faith. I mean, that's why I'm grateful, because I know that we're not walking in this alone. I do not feel alone, and also I've seen people respond. I mean, it's interesting that or not. Don't let me use the word interesting, but having the crisis we're having or the challenges we're having right now, right through the COVID pandemic, it was quite, I would say, symbolic. Because what I learned through the COVID pandemic was that we're dealing with something that we had never dealt with in a long time, or at least our generation has not dealt with. And everyone rallied, everyone stepped in. There was a lot of unknown, there was a lot of fear, but everyone stepped in and stepped up. So I can see that, and it's almost a recipe for how we're going to deal with what we're dealing with now.
Yeah.
And I've seen it succeed, and I know that there is hope, and probably that's the optimism I share in that, because I've seen how people have rallied, and we're not in this alone.
So I'm truly grateful for the way the two of you are leading within our communities, especially as our community and our nation continues to wrestle with issues around race and inequality and health and authority dynamics. As you have continued to walk that space, and I love that you identified optimistic and grateful as key words for you, but as you've walked in the complexities of it all, what has been most sad or frustrating for you in this particular season?
Yeah, if I would take that, it's especially over the past couple of weeks, it has been knowing that for me and for us, God is love, and the way we express love is one of the main ways we express love is really by loving one another, and they're not seeing that. I think that is a sad part, because I've seen the value of every single person of different color. I've had the privilege of really interacting with many people of different color, different race, different profession, different socioeconomic background, and when you really get to know them, you know that, I mean, everyone is valuable, and everyone is created in the image of God, but not if we do not treat each other that way, and that's the sad part, because we're tearing each other down, and that's the sad part, that we know, and many of us know that God is love, we're created in God's image, and that we are neighbors, we are brothers, but we are not treating each other that way. Yeah. So that's the sad part.
Yeah, when we lose a sense of the image of God in the other person, then we lose a sense of their value. Then we're not willing to necessarily listen, which means we ultimately probably don't understand whatever the conversation or dynamic is. Yeah. Paul, how about you? How would you answer that?
I agree with everything Timmy was talking about, and I think for me it's really having seen and tasted evil and hatred and division right here in our own community, and you know that hurts. I know what kind of community this is, and that's not us as a Quad Cities, but you know, really experiencing that, and that's what hurts the most. And you know, I know we're not alone. I know Jesus is walking with us through these trying times. But to just experience that and to really feel it hurts. Yeah.
The reality is, leaders, we kind of lead towards what can be. We engage what is for what can be. And you're both identifying a space of saying, I see what can be, and it's hurtful, it's sorrowful that what is doesn't reflect all that can be. So let me transition the conversation slightly, because as you have both served and led within our communities, you both recently took an opportunity to publicly kneel with others in the complexities of this season. And I'd love to take a moment to hear what that moment was, because there are two separate pictures of these two different moments where you each took time to kneel and to be alongside other people in these spaces of complexity. So can you just share for a moment what it felt like, what that meant for you to be in those spaces as you did that?
I'll yield to you, Chief.
Oh, thank you, Chief. When I was at the Black Lives Matter protest at Vanderveer, before it actually started, one of the speakers who I know from within the community there, we were talking just about what was going on and those kind of things, and I asked him. I just was wondering, what's the setup? I know there's speakers and those kind of things. Is there anything else that? And he says, it's really nothing's planned. It's just going to be kind of spontaneous. And I felt upon me just to let him know. And he's a pastor. And I told him, I said, something's telling me that wouldn't it be really great to have all of us in a tight space praying together? And I said, I don't know if that'll happen during this event, if it will be that spontaneous thing that happens for this event, or if it's right for it, just not knowing. Right. And I'm guessing he kept that in his head through the event, and we had that opportunity to do that. An interesting thing also is I believe he called up another pastor that was in the crowd, who I don't believe was intending to speak or preach or anything. He just happened to be there. He's new in the community, is my understanding. And Dwayne asked him if he would pray, and we actually called the people closer together, and we all knelt together. And I'll tell you, that moment when I was kneeling and talking with God, I had goosebumps on my forearms. I consciously looked down and I could feel that energy, that power. And we were all one community at the same time. For that couple minutes, we all were together. And it was just a very powerful moment for me personally. But then just to look around and see everybody doing that was for me one of those turning points where I knew, and I know in my heart, that our community is gonna thrive over this tragedy.
Especially as we recognize the strength and value of being together. That we're more together than we are apart. And before Timmy steps into answering this, Paul, much of what you've been leading through is really around the tensions and the inequalities as it relates to the members of our Black community. If I can ask you, why is it important to acknowledge the value of Black lives in this season?
Well, there tends to be this, well, don't all lives matter? And the answer to that is absolutely. But right now in this season, our focus is on a Black man, a Black family, and our Black community. There is a plight that our Black community members live through day after day. We all have to acknowledge that and really learn more about that. I won't be able to experience that and know 100% what that's like, but just being a community member and being a leader in the community and being a police officer in this community, my responsibility and really my heart's telling me that I need to learn more about that, and acknowledge it. It magnifies the distrust of the Black community on police when we see what happened, and it was a white police officer in Minneapolis and a Black man. The victim was a Black man. That just magnifies the distrust that is out in the community anyway. because of that. And that can relate to, and people equate that to all police officers, and that distrust just builds, and that's what really we have to do as Christians, and we have to do as community leaders, and I have to do as a police leader, is to build trust after that's just been broken down, and understandably so. When people call us and to come to their worst day, they expect us to solve problems and to be fair. And when somebody within our profession doesn't do that or acts the way that we all witnessed back then, that reflects on all of us.
Yeah. And every time leaders like the two of you are willing to step into a space and to seek to listen and to understand and to build a bridge of connection and to empathize as much as we can, and that's the place that healing and forward movement can begin to take place. And love your willingness to do that, Paul. And Timmy, you did a similar thing where you, in a space of kneeling with others. What was that space for you? What was that moment for you?
For me, it was a special moment, and a few things made it special. And I will acknowledge that I have been, especially over the past 5-6 years, I have been trying to intentionally understand what has been going on, what are the racial tensions. Now, you know, I'm from Nigeria, so I have a different perspective to this. I have not felt the same thing. I have been, I've experienced racism, and that was when I was in, as you know, Sean, I was in med school in Russia. I was there for 8 years. So I've been mugged, but that has not been a reality I've lived in on a day-to-day basis. So I've been trying to learn and engage the community. And when this occurred, and I saw really, I actually took a leave from a lot of my colleagues at work, my colleagues, my fellow workers, the senior team at Trinity, said, no, we cannot let this just go by without showing that we are with other people that are affected. Yes, it says Black Lives Matter, and it was white coat for Black Lives. That was the event that you saw that was kneeling, but it was actually all the healthcare workers came out, and I was shocked to see the enthusiasm by every single one, from the CEO to frontline workers. And if there was a zoom out of that picture, you will see many more people from the senior team to the frontline workers in that same posture. And I'll be honest, I got on my knees, and I had nothing planned in my head. I did not know exactly what I was going to do. But as I got on my knees, what struck me was, this is time to connect with God and really pray for the healing of our land, because there's a lot of healing that needs to take place. As a physician, I know when there's a wound that is not just healing, and there's a lot of healing that needs to take place. And at that time I said I would not waste the 8 minutes 46 seconds I was going to be on my knees. I was just going to connect to God and talk to Him about this, because I have in my heart of hearts been wanting to engage, and we've been engaging the minority population and the communities here. So this was a time we wanted to stand with and show that we were all in this together. I think that togetherness, doing it as one, I think that was what stood out to me the most. It wasn't a plan. There was no rally. There was no speech. It was just said at noon we're all going to go out, and everyone came out. And I think that struck me. And going back to what I said earlier, to see that everyone is pitching into this, and it's not just about the moment of kneeling down. That was going to be kind of a springboard for what we're going to do. So that moment was quite different. And I'll be honest, there was nothing planned in my mind, but at that time it struck me that that's the time to really commit our communities into the hands of God, and understand how we can step forward, how we can move forward through this.
I may be biased because you are my friends and brothers, but one of the things I love about the way you lead is with the understanding that there are certain things that we need God to do, that only He can do. And you know there's an element of dependence that we need to place in His hands and look to Him for, to be able to be the leaders God calls us to be in a space. And whether it's dealing with complexities around race or culture or even health dynamics, which part of the reality, and love for you to speak to this, Timmy, just the disproportionality of how COVID has shown up within our minority communities. Why is it important for us to understand that reality?
You know, one of the things that we saw very early on in the COVID, at least in the Quad Cities, I know it was seen nationally, but we saw that even within Trinity Hospital. One of the things we saw was there was just many more people of color that were affected, that were sicker with this. And we were intentional in following the demographics and understand what was going on and how different communities were affected. And we saw that earlier on, it was about 14% of people that were sick with COVID were African Americans. And in the Quad Cities, we had their population is just about 8%. And then we look at the Hispanics as well. They actually had a higher impact of almost 25% to start with, compared with what, about 9% of their composition of the community. And the question was why, and what do we need to do different? And I remember conversations we had. You know, we had an incident command sort of system at the hospital to deal with this. And so and the questions were, what is going on and what can we do? Why is this going on? And we wanted to really engage people where they were. So we had to move out from the walls of the hospital. So we talk a lot about the church being within the walls and moving out of the walls. I think we needed to move beyond the walls of the hospital into the communities that are affected. And so there was a simple thing, such as there was a case where it was reported that a patient wanted to be tested for COVID, and was felt that it was initially when the test capacity was limited, and that patient was not tested, saying that, assuming that the symptoms were not typical, let me put it that way. And there was a call out from someone else and said, I think if it was a white man, Caucasian man that came in and said the same thing, he will get tested. I mean, this is what we saw in the community, and we started looking at, so how can we be deliberate, intentional in really listening to people and meeting them where they are. I mean, the same thing can be said in different ways and maybe with a different tone and with a different emphasis, but we should be able to read between the lines as well and understand and be able to treat everyone the same way. And so there was an outreach, and I know Esperanza Center was part of that, to the Hispanic community, to the African American community, to really educate quickly and inform, to make us understand that yes, you are at a higher risk just by virtue of being a person of color. We did not understand why initially, but this is what we are saying. Therefore, you need to take more precautions. You need to, if you're living in, what are the precautions you're taking? And if you're at work and your job does not actually offer enough protection for you, how can we engage your employer? Because we started looking at the employment history as well, seeing that what is going on. And so we knew that Hispanic community, there were a lot in the meat packing industry, and we saw the outbreaks there. And we had some of our patients stayed for so long, and people that were sick as well, people of color. But wanted to may not understand why, but wanted to engage. And that was the key thing, engage people where they are. And just know that we are here to help. This is what you need to do. These are the resources you have. And I can add more in terms of during COVID, it actually transformed the way we delivered care. And we know that the access to health for people of color at baseline was limited. It wasn't the same. There was all the resources were out there, but people of color had less access to care. And therefore, they had more complicated conditions that were otherwise meant to be stable. therefore they were at a higher risk. So we began to educate on that. We're here for you. How can we engage you differently? And thank God for the technology. So with phone apps, with telephones, we began to engage people, and actually it was better than having them come to us. You go out to them, you're reaching out to them, and we're still far from getting to where we want to get to. And I would add that we developed a barbershop series end of last year, just to engage people of color, because we know that we have to go beyond the walls of the hospital and reach out to people. So, and that's part of the work we're still doing. There's still a lot of work to be done, but that is part of what we're doing. And yeah, I could probably talk on that.
But here, one of the things you said is the importance of engaging people. Like, if we're willing to recognize the image of God in the other person, then we see the value. Then we're willing to create space to listen so that we can understand. And it is about going and engaging. One of the things that we at Heritage strongly value is being a church family that builds bridges out of circles of relationship. And one of the anchoring scriptures for us as a church family is Jeremiah 29:7, which specifically talks about seeking the peace and welfare and the prosperity of our cities. And I just want to read it out of the Amplified Version for a moment. It says, "Seek peace and well-being for the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its peace, in its well-being, you will have peace." When you hear that scripture, when you hear those words, what does that passage mean for you? What do you think or feel when you hear that call to seek the peace and well-being of the cities that we live in?
Yeah, I think for me, it's a calling of that, I was put into a position, a calling, if you will, to create peace, and I can relax when we have peace. I can be at peace, so I'm seeking peace through making peace, if that makes sense.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. Wow, that's well said. Can I repeat that?
Please do.
And, hey, it's that's when a few years ago I've read that Bible passage before, and I heard it. Heritage, it was became a foundational verse, and for what we do at Heritage, seek the peace and the well-being and prosperity of the cities you've been called to. And that was a mindset change for myself and my wife. It was, we've been called to this place, all right? And so it was for me in my profession, well-being of a city, I can talk about our organization trying to promote and improve the health of our communities, the communities we serve, and it goes beyond the health or the wealth of one person. It's really about the whole community. And some of the one phrase I remember from my childhood, I don't know who came up with it. Probably my mom must have said it a lot. It's health is wealth. You cannot grow wealth if you're not healthy. So we know that working on the well-being and the health of our communities actually would lead to the overall prosperity of the community. And so that's a focus for me personally. And where we work, it's not just the whole core cities. We're going to the smaller communities, to the select population, because when one person is hurting, the whole community is still hurting. So we have to look for the peace and the health, the well-being. Well-being, I use it more, and I can switch that to a medical term. And the health of the community is important to its well-being. And so that's for me, it's become almost a call to action on a daily basis. How am I helping to improve the health of the community? And I'm thankful that in my role I can reach out to not just one patient. I can actually reach out to more. We can have impact on more patients and the community at large. And that's one of the blessings through all of this, is that you've been given the platform to be able to reach out to more people. And how are you engaging that platform to actually do that?
And I love how you put that, is that we have a platform. You do as well. You have a platform. But when I hear that verse, I also think that every individual has an opportunity to look at their own heart. All of us have biases. All of us have had transgressions. We're human beings. We've made mistakes. We've sinned. But to examine our own heart and pray that God takes those transgressions from us and just heals us, but also to know that every single person has influence, has the opportunity to influence, even if it's one person, if it's a neighbor, if it's somebody at the grocery store, wherever they work, wherever they go, if they're a coach, just everybody has the opportunity for this influence of change, of fairness, and of love, and of grace, and we all have the opportunities to do that. It's not just those leaders that we expect, and our community should expect that from us. But all of us have that opportunity as well.
Yeah, we're all positioned to use our circles of influence, our relationships, to build bridges, to really seek the peace and well-being of all people. And that's really, as a church, it's so foundational for us. We even named this building Bridgepoint to just once again recognize the commitment to seek the peace and well-being of the people of these cities and the cities themselves. And I know the two of you do that in your own individual context. So I wonder if I could invite you to shift thinking for a moment, to really just simply consider what you think would be, or what you feel would be, the most helpful conversation moving forward. Or perhaps I can do it this way, and Timmy, I'll just speak to you specifically. You mentioned earlier that you and your wife Ruth are from Nigeria, but you're also raising 2 African American kids. In the midst of that dynamic, what is one thing you wish that the majority culture understood in this season?
That's it's a loaded question. But if there'll be one thing, that will be one that we all created in the image of God. I think the image of God is what really defines us as humans. We're human because we are created in God's image, and we've been at home right now. My daughter has been reading a small devotional, and interestingly, yesterday one of the things she read was that before we were born, God knew us, and He formed us, and He did that without a mistake, and that's. She basically dropped the mic yesterday.
That's powerful, yeah.
And that's what we really need to take out of this. There's this beautiful picture, a song I knew from back home in Nigeria, but I realized later that it was in the Bible, where John in Revelations was talking about a picture of where every nation, every people, every tribe, every tongue. So there's diversity right there, which is called out in the Bible. And what are they doing? They're doing one thing together. They're singing hallelujah. They're singing praise, giving glory to God. That's just a beautiful picture. And that's what we want like people to understand through this.
Yeah. It's powerful imagery to recognize that we belong to each other, and that before the Lord we are one people created by Him and for Him.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Paul, let me kind of shift the same question but slightly differently. What is one thing you would want the hurting of our community to know or understand about the law enforcement community in this season?
Cut? Man. Give me just a second.
You got it.
Okay. Yeah, that's. I don't know how I can even explain the confidence I have in our law enforcement here, and the praise and admiration that I have for them. We have the police officers we have that work here in the Quad Cities, and specifically that work at the Davenport Police Department, they are committed, they're dedicated, they're professional, they're human beings that make mistakes, and they're just they're caught at a place. You know, we have inequities in our community. We've had, you know, systemic racism in our nation for hundreds of years. We have, and systemic means systems. Systems meaning educational opportunities or lack thereof. Systems meaning housing opportunities or lack thereof. Inequities with jobs and with poverty, with health care. Timmy so eloquently talked about that earlier. There's so many different lanes that there are barriers to members of our community, black and brown members of our community in particular, that many of those inequities lead to disproportionate dealings with law enforcement. And, you know, many people want to have simple answers to this very, very complicated American problem. There isn't a policy that I can put in place that would solve hundreds of years of inequity in our nation. If I could, I would do that for our whole community. I would do that for every man and woman that is a police officer out there. I would do that for the victims out there. But none of us have those simple answers. There are no simple answers. Yeah. So I have great admiration for the men and women who put on this uniform. Our badges are not tarnished by what happens somewhere else, and we won't let them be. We promise to protect this community, and we'll do so. We'll make some mistakes along the way. I will make mistakes along the way, but we're committed. And just you know, over the last several days, week and a half or so, all of that just came out under this umbrella of controversy and frustration and anger. It has come out, and our officers have just responded in such a professional manner, in an understanding manner as well with our community members, and you know, I thank God that He put me in this position to serve with them and to serve our community. I mean that, yeah. It's just. It's hard to, when all of that just comes to your heart, it's really hard to explain, you know, how much individual people mean to me, and knowing also that I have to put them in danger's way, because all of you expect that, and we promise to do that, and we swore to do that, and we will be there to do that. But it's a heavy cross that I carry. It's a burden for sure.
And I want to thank you for the very real, honest human response to that. Because anytime we dehumanize any group of people, then we lose the value and the image of God in those people. And it creates a space of suffering. It creates a space of grief and loss to be dehumanized for color of skin or color of uniform. And leaders like the two of you willing to step into those spaces, again, become the key to bridging and moving forward, creating space to listen and understand. And these are our cities, and we love our cities. Yep. And as leaders and influencers in our cities, how do you see we move forward from here? How do you see us moving forward as a community and as a people in the days ahead?
Moving forward, I think start with we talked about acknowledging that there's a problem. Mm-hmm. I think there has to be that that acknowledgement that there's a problem, and we may not know what led to what we're seeing right now. We may not know all the details, but there's a problem. And I can use an analogy from the healthcare field. I'm sorry, I've dealt with that too long, so I'm going to use that. We have, sometimes we do have a symptom. We have a fever. And if I can keep on taking ibuprofen or Tylenol, the fever will subside for a little while. But if I do not get to the bottom of what was causing the fever, it's just a Band-Aid. So acknowledging that, yes, fever is a symptom of something deeper, and I'm seeking to find out what it is and getting to the root of it. Many times the reason some people end up in the hospital with a severe infection is because they have been using ibuprofen or Tylenol to mask their fever for days. And then they end up coming in and they're almost to the point of death. And what saves them is not the ibuprofen and Tylenol that will keep on giving them. It's really getting to the bottom of the problem. Yeah. So I think there has to be that moment. And you use the word seeking to understand and to educate. I am learning a lot, and I acknowledge a lot of knowledge deficiency in this. And I think we have to be able to put ourselves in the shoes of the other person. Yeah. That do I really love the other person like I love myself? Yeah. When I'm seeing my brother in pain, am I just going to be a bystander, or would I seek to understand and empathize and help, take care of that pain? And really, you have to be educated to know about things and understand, and knowing that it's not going to be a one-day journey. It's going to be several years, probably generations, but there'll be a healing that needs to start, and it starts from acknowledging that there's a problem, and I'm seeking to understand, and then stepping out and doing something about it. I think a lot of us, we stop at just kneeling, and that's it. Some of us kneel in our rooms and pray, but we need to go out and engage to show that love. We cannot say that we're a community of people with equal opportunities without going to demonstrate that. So, yeah.
How about we tag team this one? Because I agree with everything Timmy was saying right there, and I will add one thing. I will add personal responsibility and involvement. I think we can't look at others to take care of this problem for us. And I mean all of us, any of us. I think all of us are the solution, not a leader here or a group there. Or I think individually we all need to own this, be responsible for it, and do what we can do within our circle of influence to make positive changes. And some circles are bigger. Some people have bigger circles than others. But all of us have influence, one on ourselves, our own hearts, and on that circle of influence that we have.
When we're willing to be part of the solution and not simply be part of the problem, there's this space that together we can actually move forward. As you process that, how do you think, how would you see the church, the Big C church, being most helpful in moving forward?
I think I'm just going to add to what Timmy talked about talked about it in a broader sense, but I think the church is a leader and influence of so many people in our community that I think open dialogue in our church about this, our church talking about the responsibility that we have as Christians to, one, acknowledge, but also to take that responsibility and take the responsibility on ourselves as individuals and as a church to open up, get outside of our walls of the small C church, and go out and seek making positive change. it's important that the church really needs to understand the amount of influence that they can have on each other, but then outside the walls of the church as well. They can have incredible influence outside of the church.
Yeah.
Timmy, would you add?
I mean, yes, it's I love the fact that we have to really go beyond the walls. I think there's no time more real than now when you have to go beyond the walls. You know, there's a church because there's a body of Christ, and we are Christians, and that is based on God's love. And you know, and Jesus kept on saying that, as you know, that He wants us to love one another. There's no way you can say that the love of God is in you and you will not have fellowship with one another. There's no way that the love of God is in you and you will not love your neighbor. And love is an act. It's active. It's not passive. It's not just a word. You have to, in your own space, as you put it out, what can I do? And yes, it will take the grace of God. It will take the power of God. But working through us, now we have to be willing to step in as the hands of God, as the eyes of God. I know when people are hurting, Jesus said that when I was hungry, you fed me, and when I was thirsty, you gave me drink, and when I was a stranger, you welcomed me. It's what you do to your neighbor that reflects the love of God in you, and that's where the church needs to own right now, because the church is existing because the only reason there's church is because they're people of God who are saved because of God's love and sacrifice, and we have to be able to live out that love. And that love is not, Jesus said, I did not come for the for those that are well. I mean, I think in church we surround ourselves within the church with people that are doing well. We do not always engage the problems of the community or the challenges we have. So it's going out to really share that love by really loving your neighbor. And you cannot love your neighbor if you don't even know your neighbor. Yeah. So that's engaging and living out love. Yeah.
I'm really appreciative of the interaction and conversation, the thinking around this. And I know none of us claim to have all the answers. We don't. But I do know we understand that prayer changes things.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd love, if you're willing, to just ask you to share one way that we as a church can be praying for you in the days ahead in this season.
If I'll take it, it's really wisdom. I think wisdom here is really very important, because you can know things, you can maybe understand things, but the wisdom to make the right decision and the right time, it's critical here to foster healing, to foster recovery, and to foster love. Wisdom is necessary, and I think that's what I would ask for. And I think I realized that one as a physician and also in my leadership role, decisions I make matter, and it affects lives, and also wisdom.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. Paul? I'll take the wisdom too, and I'll add. Yeah. I think I would love to add peace, safety, and community. For obvious reasons, and the community part is I truly believe it's going to take all of us. I don't think we can afford to have complacency during this time, and I would really love to have prayers for that.
Yeah. Well, I commit to you as my friends and brothers that I will be praying that way, and the rest of the Heritage Church family will be leaning in alongside in those specific ways for you as you continue to lead. Again, when I say thank you for this time and willingness just to have a conversation, to create a space to understand and to listen together. And specifically, one of the things that the church is doing this weekend is we're creating some space to engage in the sacrament of communion, which that action remembers and recognizes the greatest reconciling act of all time in Jesus. And as we prepare as a church to step into that space, as we even transition now into a space for additional worship, I'd love for you as my friends and as my brothers to engage with us in the sacrament of communion, even as we transition back into the rest of our service time. So thanks again, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Invite you
Thank
to just share this remembrance moment together even now.
Absolutely.